other than the possibility that it exists. You haven't seen evidence for it. You've seen large numbers of stars. Is that metaphysical? Is that spiritual? That's a belief in the unobservable. Hey folks, welcome to Trickle Down Philosophy. That's the theme of the channel. I might change the name at some point, but the way I look at different arguments being made, whether they're atheistic, theistic, just purely scientific, cosmological, mathematical, whatever. I like to look at just arguments and lines of thinking and then give my thoughts. And I'll find deficiencies in arguments or things that need to be accounted for in order to make a better argument. And I'll even say whether or not it makes sense to me or not. There are certain things I just come right out with, like in Christian theology, for example, the doctrine of the Trinity absolutely makes no sense to me whatsoever. And I do understand it because I've written and had published a 550-page book on the topic. So I did delve into it. That doesn't mean I'm right, but it means I have a basis for what I think. I check out what other people say. This one caught my eye. YouTube suggested it to me. And it's on the subject of religion versus spirituality. And a number of folks will claim, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. Now, Plato could have made that claim, for example, where he believed in the world of the forms, where the ideas, the archetypes of perfect things existed. And we can understand these things or get close to these things by contemplation. In one sense, that is absolutely a metaphysical construct, where up there in the heavens somewhere is this world of the forms. That's where ideas exist, archetypes exist, of perfect justice, perfect liberty, a perfect dog, a perfect table. And by contemplation, we can get closer to reproducing them here on earth, though it's asymptotic. We will not get there because to perfection because our senses limit our ability to either reproduce it or produce it. So this comes from the Psych Simplified channel. I don't know that channel. I've never seen anything by them. This is going to be the first time, but I'm going to put the link below in case you have an interest in going over and checking it out. I'll put the link to their channel in the description box because they're the ones that did the work on this that I'm going to be reviewing. All right, here we go.
Spirituality and religion. Ever heard of these two words and conclude in your heart they could be the same? Well, they're not, for there is a fine line between them. Let me usher you through some things that you need to know about spirituality and religion. 1. Activities. Religion is more like an organized activity and practice.
Yeah.
It involves activities like prayers, fast, worship chants. For example, in Christianity and Islam, you can say a person is religious when he doesn't miss church or mosque or prayers. Always fasts, always reading the holy books. On the other hand, spirituality is more of an experience, an interconnectedness with force, something greater than the ordinary. It is more than mere practice or spiritual activity. Here you connect to a higher being. If there are any activities, you don't do them because you're pressured to. You do them with meaning.
Yeah.
Being religious, i.e. Christian, requires you take the Holy Communion, even when you don't want to. But it is spiritual to skip if you feel you have to settle your relationship with God. 2. One external, one internal. Religion, as a practice, mainly focuses more on the external. That is, what people say or hear. Some religious people often do things only because they do not want to be seen in a bad light.
In philosophical terms, to compare these to it, Aristotle was more of a religionist in the sense that he was about modifying your behavior until it became second natured, and then you'd become virtuous. Those things, like if you weren't, let's say you considered gentleness to be a virtue, but you went through life like a bull in a china shop, just bludgeoning people with your ideas and approaches and intolerances, and then you continually worked at becoming gentler, gentler, gentler. That is your activity in relation to the world. Eventually, you can get to the point where you don't have to think about modifying your behavior, and then essentially you've become virtuous in the area of gentleness because it's second natured. So that has to do with activity. Whereas Plato, who was Aristotle's teacher, so Aristotle diverged from Plato in this, just as Plato diverged from Socrates, his teacher, in certain things. Plato was more about contemplation. He said the way that we can get to these perfections, whether it's perfect gentleness, perfect patience, perfect kindness, is by contemplation, what it is. And these perfections exist in the world of the forms, which are archetypes of these various constructs, these concepts. And this could almost be, you could substitute Socrates and Plato in here and say one is more about contemplation, the internal, whereas the other, Aristotle, be more about the external. Like your behavior would eventually become internalized to where you have it second natured. Yeah, sometimes there isn't a difference between spirituality and the philosophers, or religion and the philosophers.
Since religion is external, the focus sometimes drifts. It becomes more about how the outer world sees them, the places of worship, showing the right attitudes, etc. Spirituality focuses on the inside, the inner man, the heart, undermining what people say or do. Spiritual individual sees worship more than an external activity, but about self-awareness. While religion is an external practice, spirituality is an interconnectedness of the soul with a higher being. 3.
Well, in that context too, and Aristotle's idea is to have it become second natured within you, and then you have that virtue. So that is internally driven, but it's obvious it's in relation to others. So if you want to be gentle because other people are turned off by your current way of being, modify it. But you'll look in the faces of others and see how they're reacting to you. And in that sense, it is an external viewpoint looking at you. And you no longer want that result. You want people to embrace you for being gentle because you believe in that. Then you work toward it and make it happen. In that sense, then you would have this internal part of you. But it's going to start with a large dose of the external view of you.
Defined roles or structures. Religion is organized. Spirituality is not. Religious activities and practices are very well organized and structured. Some religions set out time for prayers every day, and there are rules and guidelines before you become part of them. There are doctrines and traditions, special instruments for worship, special songs, books, etc. You can imagine the level of planning it takes to do all these. Also, every religion has a defined aim and structure that each member is aware of. Rules or doctrines do not resist spirituality. The operation is more about a person's one-on-one relationship with a higher being, so it takes any form. It may follow some religious practices, but does not end there. Sometimes it may seem to go against religious practices, but it's more about oneself having a meaning from the relationship with the Creator. 4. Religion is more about complete acceptance. Spirituality is an experience. Religion sometimes does not give room for questioning of doubts. You accept and follow yours with faith, without questions. Spirituality is an experience.
That's where when I drive by a church and if I see a stanchion outside that says, all are welcome, that is always conditional. It's understandable. It's a social environment based on a particular dogma. And if you go in and challenge that dogma or have questions about it, some organizations are more tolerant of that than others. I ran in a group 20 or 30 years ago that was a fundamentalist Christian group, and they were intolerant. You could ask a question, but it could not come across as a doubt. You had to accept the teaching of the man of God that started the organization, who shall be nameless now. But that is how a lot of fervent religious organizations approach things, that there is somebody who started the church, whether it's L. Ron Hubbard in Scientology, whether it's this one or that one, that they started it, you imbibe their teachings, don't challenge it, because the entire social structure centers around agreement. That's where politics, political parties are very much entrenched in that way of thinking, that you have to accept every plank and nuance of the party's ideologies in order to be considered one of us. Otherwise, there's the door. So when I see those stanchions outside churches, I do know when it says all are welcome, it means basically all are welcome to come in, sit down, hear what we have to say, be a part, be nice, and leave. But don't challenge what we have to say. And I understand that to a point,
One's acceptance, trust, and belief are more about a conviction based on the experiences had, not what one has been told or what you hear. So your belief is more concrete, and it's more than mere practice. Furthermore, spirituality helps you worship from an experience, an encounter, and conviction of a divine existence. So it's not forced, but done out of desire. Religion is more like a dogma. You do it even when you sometimes don't know its significance. Sometimes it's seen as insignificance or inconvenience. The worshipers do not have any form of conviction, but do it anyway.
Well, and I don't know if it's that the worshipers don't have any form of conviction, but do it anyway. I don't think that that's true. I know folks who go to church, who regularly go to church. My girlfriend does, and sometimes I'll go with her. And, I look at it differently when we go, but it has meaning to her. And sometimes just the ritual has meaning to people who abide by it. So I like the way they presented this, though. It gives a lot of food for thought. I mean, some of the ideas I already understood, but they sort of really concretized it a bit better than what I had formulated in my mind about the differences. One is more formal. It involves, a certain measure of habit, going and doing things. And the other is you could, just in your own private life, in your own mind, have realizations that you may not have otherwise had. They're almost always rooted in experience, but in contemplation and how you want to be versus what you want to believe or what you're told to believe. So there it is. The link is down below to their channel. I like what they did there. I thought that was well presented. They didn't ridicule or criticize anyone. I didn't agree with everything that they said, but most of it was very well done. So leave your thoughts, folks. Whether you believe in spirituality, metaphysics is that which is not scientific. It's beyond it. And there's a lot that falls within the realm of metaphysics, those things that are not scientific, that even scientists would acknowledge. There are plenty of things that we don't know already, for example, and may never know. Alien life out there. Is there life out there? We don't know. Some folks believe just in the sheer number of galaxies, stars, and planets out there that there must be. Probability strongly suggests that there is somewhere out there similar life, perhaps similar evolutionary forces that produced a race of people, a race of beings that might be somewhat similar to us, might not be, we don't know, but are like, hey, I absolutely believe that there's life out there. You have no basis for believing it other than the possibility that it exists. You haven't seen evidence for it. You've seen large numbers of stars. Is that metaphysical? Is that spiritual? That's a belief in the unobservable. So, or the Big Bang, unobservable, or the singularity, unobservable. The information that does not leave a black hole, unobservable, but we do believe that there's information within it. Folks do. So what constitutes spirituality or a metaphysic? That which is outside the purview of science, but is still believed. Now, is that spiritual? It's certainly not physical. So these are just good questions, and these are the ones that philosophers ponder, and I ponder them. So hope you enjoyed that, guys. Have a great day. Please subscribe and like this, and I'll see you on another video, and keep thinking philosophically.